4 bodybuilding laws of muscle building. These 4 laws are so important if your goal is to maximize how big and muscular you actually are. Now, I'm not talking about strength training here or a hybrid of both. I'm talking purely bodybuilding training and focusing on putting on as much muscle as possible. There are 4 laws that must never be broken because these laws are vital when it comes to building as much muscle as possible. So, number 1, and law number 1 is going to be pick exercises that give you the most tension in the muscle. Tension in the muscle is the number 1 thing that causes growth, obviously, duh. But here's where it's a little different when it comes to bodybuilding training versus like powerlifting or anything like that. In powerlifting, the goal is to move the weight from point A to point B. But in bodybuilding training, you want to actually make the point A to point B as hard as possible. So what that means is you need to pick exercises that put the most amount of tension on the targeted muscle so that you specifically feel. Now, what does that mean? So for example, barbell bench press, a great movement. I'm not going to sit here and say never barbell bench press. But when it comes to hypertrophy training and building as much muscle as possible, the bench press might not be the answer for you because maybe you feel certain movements better or more, and those movements maybe create more tension in the chest than the actual barbell bench press. It really just depends on you and what specifically you feel. So for example, if we go with the barbell bench press again, maybe you feel an inclined Smith machine press way more in your pecs than you do the barbell bench press. So what that means is you're creating more tension by doing the Smith machine incline as opposed to doing the barbell bench press. So by creating more tension in that muscle, you're actually going to build and fill out that area. I'll give you another example. Shoulder training. For me specifically, this is a specific example for me. When I really wanted to cap my delts and really build my side deltoids, I would always do seated lateral raises, sitting and trying to bring the dumbbell up. And I feel that movement, but not as much as when I do it with the cable. So what I said was, I'm not going to do it with the dumbbell right now. I'm going to focus on doing it just with the cable. And just by making that switch from the dumbbell to the cable, I was able to create more tension on that side deltoid and therefore giving my shoulders more of a round look. So that's exactly what I mean. You need to pick exercises that build and create as much tension in the targeted muscle that you're trying to build up. And again, like I said, nothing wrong with the barbell bench press or squats or anything like that. But when it comes to pure bodybuilding training and pure putting on as much muscle as possible in the areas that you want, you might have to avoid some of those exercises. I've talked about this in depth. Same thing with squats. Squats are a great movement. I love squats. But when it comes to growing my quads, nothing grows my quads more than hack squats. So just keep that in mind. Same thing for yourself. All right. Law number 2, we need to focus on form. Now, before you click off and you're like, oh, my form is good. I'm not talking about textbook form. I'm talking about form with a controlled negative and full range of motion. Full range of motion should be a total obvious to you. Like, duh, we need to be training with full range of motion. So I'm not going to really address that. You always should be doing full range of motion from the beginning of your career all the way to the end. You always should be doing full range of motion or exercise. So I'm not going to really talk about that. That's kind of common sense. But where this makes it a little bit better for bodybuilding training is focusing on the negative. So what does that mean, focusing on the negative? Well, every portion of a lift has a positive movement and a negative movement. If we go with the bench press example again, the positive portion is when the bar's on your chest and you're pushing up. The negative is when you're bringing the bar down to your chest. Now, the negative portion of the lift actually is what causes the most muscle damage and, in fact, the most growth. So by doing a controlled negative on every movement that you do, you're improving your ability to build as much muscle as possible because you're creating more damage, you're creating more tension. So focus on controlling the negative. So many people in the gym and I see this all the time, they just let the weight drop. So they're doing, let's say, a barbell curl, for example, they're curling the weight up and they're just letting the weight drop. I don't want that for you. I want you to get everything that you can out of the movement that you can. Milk the movement entirely. So like I said, again, perfect example. Let's just say you're doing a bench press. Again, control that negative. Get as much as you can out of that negative portion of the lift because that creates the most muscle damage, which in turn will build more muscle. All right. Law number 3, intensity. You need to be training hard to put on muscle. I've said this so many times as well. Your body's just not going to put muscle on because you walked into the gym today. It doesn't work like that. Your body needs to be forced to make muscle tissue. Muscle tissue is very expensive for your body to build and maintain, and your body doesn't want muscle tissue because, like I said, it needs protein, it needs extra calories. Your body doesn't want that. But by forcing it on through intensity is where the key is. So what does that mean? Intensity. Well, that means training effing hard. You need to have what I call UTF, ugly training face. And what that means is you need to be pushing yourself every set close to failure. So you want to leave like 1 rep in the tank or no reps in the tank. So that's probably like a good like rate in reserve where you need to be at. You need to be close to failure. I don't think it's necessary for you to go beyond failure. And like you see most people in the gym, they have like their spotter like doing the weight. Like that's not necessary. That's not doing it. It's not building any muscle. But taking the weight close to failure on your own is a really good indicator that you're actually going to improve and grow. If you can have a conversation when you're training, that's probably not good. And you're probably not training intense enough to put on as much muscle as possible. Remember, we need to force muscle on. And the way you do that is with intensity, okay? Coupled with the other things that I talked about as well. Now, the 4th law, and this one is another one that you probably have heard before, but progressive overload. Progressive overload means that we need to put the demand on your body to change. And the way we do that is by constantly making progress, progressive overloading. So you could progress in a number of different ways. You can progress by just adding weight to the bar. You can progress by adding reps. You can progress by adding sets. You can progress by using better form. And you can progress by feeling it in that target muscle. But every time you come to the gym, you need to beat what you did last time in some sense, whether that means you did more reps, more weight, more feeling it, better form. Those are the ways that you progress. If progression is not built into your program, you are not going to see changes. You are not going to be building muscle at all. You need to progress. You can't just go into the gym, do the same workout over and over, lift the same weights over and over, and expect to change. It's not going to happen. So those are the 4 laws of bodybuilding training that you need to make sure that every box is ticked when you go into the gym. And if you're confused about any of this, I created a free 6-week training program that I want to give you for free. No strings attached. Just click below, download that. And this program has all these laws in it, plus more to help you build as much muscle as possible. And until next time, this was Anthony, AB Fitness. I'll catch you on the next one.